right before your eyes. Step by step, you're on your way. You're welcome to a brighter day. Don't you know it feels good to be alive? You could be larger than life.
Hello, welcome to Live Life Driven. Thanks for tuning in. I love when I've got previous guests back on the show talking about where they're at, what's been going on with them, because now you got a little history on them, you know them a little bit better, and it always seems like the value when they come back is 10x. So I've got Jake Kelfer on the line again. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How you doing? It's great to be back.
Yeah, I love your energy. Every time I see your stuff on social media, you are operating at a full 10 plus tilt.
Yeah, man, dude, I love what I do. I'm blessed to be able to do it. And, I always bring the heat. Yeah,
well, your last book, Elevate Your Network, we talked about on the show. And, I can't help but think about, your lifestyle, what you wrote about. And then as I'm flipping through your social media, I'm like, man, this guy is literally living what he's written and what he's talked about. What are some of your secrets, man? How do you keep that level of intensity up every day in personal and in business?
Man, I think that for me, one of the ways that I keep this energy up is I know what my responsibility is to the people I serve.
Yeah.
And that is to give them my best, no matter if it's one person on a live video or 3,000 people in a sold out auditorium. Right. And so for me, I know that how do I keep this energy? It's knowing that I'm here to do what I'm here to do and to make sure that I never lose sight of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that's like one of the reasons why I'm always able to show up with energy. But there are also things that I do to help conserve my energy when I'm not performing or to fill up my cup when I'm resting, because I think that it's really hard for anybody, even someone like me who's just a bundle of energy, to go 24/7. So I have dedicated time in my calendar for Jake time. I have time where it's just winding down time. I have time for watching Netflix. I have, I really try to make sure that I do things that fill up my own cup. I exercise. I do what I need to do to make sure that when I'm as on as I can be.
I think it's interesting when you have guys in our industry that do what we do, you create a genuine need, want, and desire for your content, for your message, for your education. And when you skip a beat or when you're not there, it's like a vacuum, an empty vacuum. I've had it where I've taken a few weeks off from my show and I start getting these texts and emails like, hey, I'm driving to work. Where's your show? And I think to your point, you realize that people are looking for this, so you owe it to them. Otherwise, you're going to create that empty vacuum effect where there's nothing there. So well done on that. And you reached out recently, said you've got a new book coming out. And I thought maybe you were hinting at that on some of your social media. But what do you have coming out? What's the title of the book? What can you tell us? I'm excited.
Yeah, man. So I got my third book. It just came out. It's called The Elevated Entrepreneur. And this is the one that I think is the most applicable to entrepreneurs worldwide and people that want to be higher performing, more productivity crushing and freedom achieving on their journeys. It's a interview book that features 39 of the world's best coaches, performers, and entrepreneurs. And it's been an adventure to get to this point, but it is amazing to hear what people are already saying about it and to get it out on the shelves and in people's homes.
Yeah. Even when you're at the top of your game, you still need resources. You still need coaches. It's something that I've been talking about. Even the best basketball players in the world play for a coach. They're in there being coached every day. And so often, and I don't understand it, why business leaders don't have coaches on a regular basis to continue to improve their performance, be better who they are, or at least grab a great book that provides those same resources.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, right? Like you go to school, you pay a lot of money, you go to grad school, you pay a lot of money to get a piece of paper, a degree that may or may not help you depending on the type of degree it is, right? And then you have people, though, when it comes to investing in yourself and your businesses, you have people that say, wait, you're going to spend $5K or $10K to better yourself and to grow your business that has an unlimited earning potential. And you're like, yeah, I am going to spend that. But people don't question going $150,000, $300,000 in debt for something else. And so it's a really interesting dynamic. But when you look at all of the best performers in the world, what do they have? They have somebody on a team. They have a team of people that help them get to that next level. And it's really important that us as business leaders and entrepreneurs, we have the right people to guide us and lead us. And that's one of the big reasons why we wrote this book, is I wanted to give people all over the world inside access to 39 of the world's best, so that you could hopefully find somebody that you can double down on and learn from both their free and their paid stuff.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time. Well, I'm in the Arte Syndicate right now with Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. And Andy will talk about, and this guy is, he's on the top of his game. He's on the top of the billboards and everything that he does. And he says, I'll read a book. And he goes, if I read one thing in that entire book that resonates with me as a business leader, that gives me some coaching, it was worth the time I took to read that entire book. And, when you really look at things that way, this book that you've got coming out, if there's one thing that one of these leaders said in your book that can resonate, that can change your entire business career.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One thing is all it needs. Sometimes we're like, okay, is it worth it to read this book? Now I'll break this down to this example. It's like, look, let's say you have a 200-page book. You read a page a minute. You're looking at 200 minutes, a little over 3 hours of your time, right? 3 hours of your time. Now, no matter what you do, no matter how much your time is worth, can you take one thing out of those 3 hours, and can that produce more than 3 hours worth of revenue?
Yeah.
And if it can, that book immediately has a positive ROI. And most books produce a positive ROI, especially if it comes from somebody or is on the topic of an area you want to improve upon.
Yeah. And especially when you look at the cost of admission on books, $15 to $20 on Amazon, you've got it in your hands within a couple days. You didn't even have to leave your house to go to the bookstore. The tools are available to us. All right. So you mentioned you've got some great people that you've interviewed in the book. Now, can you share some of those names with us, or do we got to wait till it comes out? Or
No, we'll go share them. We'll share them. We just announced them, and we've been teasing them for a while, but we have some amazing entrepreneurs in there. Everybody from John Lee Dumas, Pat Flynn, Lori Harder, to we have some of the ClickFunnels family, Steve J. Larson, Marley Jacks, Allison J. Prince. We have some incredible sports entrepreneurs, Anthony Trucks, Ben Newman. We have John Gordon. We have Nick Santanastasso in there. We have so many amazing people. We have Brandon Cohen, the former founder and CEO of Liquid IV. So, there's a little bit of everyone for everyone.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of great people that participated in this book. And the advice and the stories that they shared is pretty remarkable.
It's exciting to hear that come out. What advice, you've written the book now, you've interviewed some great people. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs out there that are listening to this show? Obviously, we've hit that ball home that you've got to, use tools like great books to be better. But what advice would you give entrepreneurs right now in today's environment?
Well, based off everything that we talked about in the book, because the way I structured this book is I ask all of these guests a series of questions, really focusing on how to achieve your own definition of success while enjoying the journey. And one of the biggest things that everyone has talked about is you have to be willing to start. One of the biggest reasons why we never get from A to B or A to Z is because we don't take that first step. And it's not about being the biggest step. It's just about taking that first step and turning that thought into an action.
Yeah.
That action will then be more likely to be repeated.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things. The second thing is relationships are everything. And fundamentally, I think we all know this, but very rarely do we make our relationships our priority in our calendar. What's the first thing that disappears when we get busy at work? Well, it's the meeting that we were going to have with a friend, that happy hour drink we were going to get, that family dinner that we were going to do, that date night that we were going to do. Relationships are pivotal to achieving success and happiness.
Yeah.
And then a third thing that I've really learned, and a great piece of advice that has really come from this book, is nobody is going to give you permission to get to where you want to go. You have to decide that this is what you want. And when your will to try and your desire to do becomes greater than the fear of not starting, the fear of waiting, that's when you're going to be able to start to move forward. So there's so many more pieces of advice, but those are just a couple that I think are super relevant in our entrepreneurial world today, that piggyback off of what a lot of our experts said when I went through and analyzed all of their responses.
You're talking about some of the things that I've been talking about recently, just getting started. When I launched my tequila company back in 2017, we raised $5 million off a business plan that I'd written the prior 6 months. So I worked an 8-9 hour shift. I was on the road traveling. I was the vice president of Kettle One. I was grinding away. I knew we were going to be selling the company, and I didn't know what was going to happen with all of our positions. So I thought, well, I want to start this company. But I'm lack for time. So literally I sat down at the computer with the intention of, well, I'm just going to write a little bit each night. I don't think I said 5 minutes, but it was probably like, I'm going to spend 30 minutes or so on the computer each night. And eventually, over a period of 6 months, I had a business plan that was worthy of raising $5 million. Ultimately, we raised $12 million for the project. But, just getting started is the key, and I tell people, spend 5 minutes a day on it, because if you put those 5 minutes together at the end of the year, if you've done it every day, it's like 1,800 hours, get after it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we the reason why we don't start, and this has become very apparent with all the clients that I work with, a lot of people that I talk about, the reason we don't start is because we're afraid on what's on the other side of the action.
Yeah, like success.
Sometimes it's success. What if it actually goes right? And sometimes it's failure. What if it doesn't go right?
Yeah.
Right. But the reality is we all know what we're supposed to do, but we're more so fearful of what other people are going to think of us when we actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that I would tell everybody who wants to get to the next level in their life is it's not important to have everybody like what you're doing or agree with what you're doing. It's important to have the right people love you for what you're doing and love you for being the person that does the things you say you're going to do. Love is more important than like. Quality is more important than quantity. And this is a very, very real thing that can happen for entrepreneurs is because we have these great ideas, but we never actually implement on those because of all the things I just mentioned. And so I think that's something super important that we consider is let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let's be open to the criticism, open to the feedback, open to the praise, right? Not everything you do is going to immediately result in haters and trolls.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you do is going to lead to inspiration, virality, and changing the world. But we're so focused on what are other people going to think negatively that it prohibits us, inhibits us from actually doing the things that we know we're capable of, or that we desire to do, or that even we just want to do because we're called to do it.
Yeah. Talk about relationships. Do you have a relationship hack or something that keeps you in line with maintaining your relationships with your friends and your family, like you talked about how important it is to maintain relationships?
One of my big hacks is on my calendar, time with my family and certain time with my friends and date nights. Those go on the calendar before the work meetings.
Yeah.
And I asked myself this question. Now, I'm a big believer in like yes and versus either or. Okay. So I'm a big believer that you can have it all: the money, the relationships, the happiness, everything. But I asked myself this question. I said, would I rather have $1 million or would I rather have love and relationships? And without even questioning it, I was like, love and relationships.
Sure.
And then I asked myself this: does my schedule reflect that priority 100%? Or does it favor the fame, the numbers, the business? I looked at the calendar and I was like, you know what? It doesn't equate. It's off by a little bit.
Yeah.
And so what I had to do is I made some adjustments and I made sure that I put the right things on the calendar based on the priority that they are for me in terms of how I define success in my life. And that was a huge, huge hack. And so I highly recommend everyone ask yourself that. And maybe it's not a money thing or a relationships thing, but maybe it's like, what do you actually want for your life and prioritize? And then is that on the calendar? And more often than not, it's our family, it's our friends, it's our happiness, it's our, and where do those things come from? Experiences. Oftentimes experiences that are done with other people. So how do you make sure those things get put on your calendar so that you can maintain those relationships, develop those relationships, and ultimately achieve whatever it is that you desire to achieve based on your priorities?
What's great about those things too is that your friends, family, or the people you have relationships with, they appreciate that so much. We had this event up here in Montana. It was brand new this year, didn't know anything about it, but it was called the Beast Fest. And it had these deer antlers, and they're like, oh, we're giving away a new AR, a